Ford Okafor was a man who had everything: wealth beyond imagination, a sprawling mansion overlooking the city, businesses that flourished under his keen eye, and a reputation that commanded both fear and admiration. Yet despite all his accomplishments, his grandest possession was something he never truly valued: time. It was a regular day when Ford received the news that shattered his world: terminal illness, 6 months to live. The words echoed in his mind like a cruel joke, a punishment for a sin he had yet to commit. He had spent years building an empire, yet death had no interest in his wealth. It was coming for him, stripping him of his power, his control, and leaving him with one thought: what will I leave behind? Pamela Owusu had been Ford's maid for nearly 5 years. Unlike others who trembled in his presence, Pamela was different. She was quiet but observant, resilient but kind. She never asked for more than what she earned, never stole glances at the luxuries around her. Ford admired that about her: a woman content with so little when he, a man who had everything, was still unsatisfied. One evening, as Pamela cleared the dining table, she felt Ford's piercing gaze on her. His usual stern expression was gone, replaced with something else: desperation. "Pamela," he said, his voice steady but low, "I need to ask you for something important." She hesitated, unsure of the weight in his words. "Yes, sir." "I'm dying," he admitted bluntly, "and I have no heir, no one to carry my name, my bloodline. I want you to bear my child." Pamela's heart pounded in her chest. She dropped the dish she had been holding, shattering it into 1,000 pieces. Was he joking? "I don't want your money," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Ford's lips curved into a sad smile. "I know. That's why I asked you." Pamela was not naive. She knew this was a decision that would change her life forever. But when she looked into his eyes, eyes that had always been cold but were now pleading, she saw something deeper: a man who had everything, yet nothing at all. And so, after nights of wrestling with her conscience, she agreed. Not for the wealth, not for the legacy, but for a dying man who had, in his own way, shown her kindness when the world had given her none. As the months passed, Ford became a different man. He no longer buried himself in work. Instead, he spent his days with Pamela, reading to her, taking slow walks in the garden, placing his hand gently on her growing belly. What had begun as a mere arrangement had turned into something deeper: love. Ford, the ruthless billionaire, had found solace in the one person who never sought to take anything from him. And then, something unbelievable happened. Ford surpassed the doctor's expectations. 6 months came and went, yet he still lived. Perhaps it was fate. Perhaps he was meant to meet his sons. The night Pamela went into labor, the entire mansion was in chaos. The house staff, who had once ignored her, now rushed to her aid. Ford paced the hallway, his usual calm demeanor shattered by the cries of the woman who was giving him something he never thought he would have. And then, it happened. The wails of not one but 2 babies filled the air, twin boys. Ford entered the room, his breath hitching as he laid eyes on them for the first time. 2 tiny beings, wrapped in soft blankets, their little fingers curling as they reached out for the world. A single tear escaped his eye, a tear he would have never let anyone see before. This was his legacy, his blood, his immortality. He took his sons into his arms, and for the first time in his life, Ford Okafor felt at peace. Pamela watched as Ford cradled his sons, his strong frame hunched over as he whispered promises to them, promises he would never keep, because fate had one last move to make. The color drained from Ford's face, his breaths grew shallow, his grip on the babies loosening. Pamela knew before he even collapsed. He had been waiting for this moment, holding on just long enough to meet them. As Ford's body hit the ground, as the staff rushed in screaming, Pamela remained frozen. The man who had once been larger than life now lay still, his final wish granted. He had met his sons, and now he was gone. Ford's funeral was unlike any other. Not a grand billionaire's affair, but an intimate farewell. As Pamela stood by his grave, her newborns in her arms, she whispered, "I will raise them to know you, to love you, to be better than us both." The wind howled through the cemetery as if Ford himself was answering her, and so Pamela became more than a mother. She became a storyteller, ensuring that her sons would never forget the father who fought to meet them, even in his dying breath. Years later, two young men would stand where their mother once stood, staring at the gravestone of a father they never got to know. One would become a businessman, determined to uphold his father's empire. The other, a doctor, vowing to save others from the fate that had taken his father too soon. Ford Okafor had died. But his legacy had only just begun. This story is a suspenseful, thrilling, and deeply emotional tale of love, sacrifice, and destiny. It is more than just wealth or power. It is about the choices we make when faced with the end and how sometimes love finds us in the most unexpected places. Would you accept Ford's request if you were in Pamela's position? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe for more gripping, emotional stories like this.